Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Fox Institute June webinar on Deep Ecumenism and our doctoral programs. And we'll just let folks get comfortable and arrive, and we're just welcoming you. And as people arrive, if you want to, on your Zoom chat, which you can see at the bottom of your picture, you can say hello, I'm here, and just we'll take a couple minutes for people to greet one another. I see Larry Edwards, one of the professors from University of Creation Spirituality, who will be teaching at Fox Institute. Hi, Larry, welcome. And Marvin Anderson, our board chairperson, has joined us, and he's going to join us a little bit later to talk about our doctoral programs. So welcome, Marvin, too. We have a couple folks. People can either use that link to join the call or call on the phone. So we have a variety of folks joining us, both from their computer and from their phone. And Rabbi Gross has joined us, but he doesn't have his video on yet.
Oh, can you see me?
I see him.
Yes.
Okay, it's just me then. I might be my internet connection.
Susan, are we recording now?
Yes. If you look at the bottom of your screen, it says, or I don't know if yours says it, but it says pause or stop recording instead of recording. So
Okay,
just to let folks know we are recording this so that we can have it for the future. Share it. So people are still arriving. Let's just give folks just a little bit more time. Paula Artek, one of our professors, is here. Hi, Paula, welcome. The illustrious supportive husband is here.
And instructor.
Yes, and instructor, whoops, that's right, and teaching Tai Chi at Fox Institute. Okay, great. There's lots of wonderful people joining us from near and far. We still have a couple minutes, and
we won't be able to see them.
That's correct. As a webinar, just the panelist video is on, and so they can write messages, and then if there's a couple folks that we can then promote them to that's what it's called, into being a panelist. So we can move people back and forth, you know, as far as bringing the video on. So we have a couple folks that are going to be joining us for this webinar. So while we're waiting for some other folks to join us, everybody signing on, I just want to explain a little bit about the technology here that we're using. For the folks that are using the internet and have video, at the top of this picture screen, there's a little, it says speaker view, or it'll say gallery view. So if it's speaker view, then the person who's talking is bigger in your screen and everyone else is smaller. So when our keynote speakers are speaking tonight, that might be a really good idea to set that. But that gives you a little bit of, you know, to see what works for you that way. Also, we have the chat where people, so, you know, can sort of check in and, you know, say that they're here or greet each other. but for questions at the bottom, and I see that there's one there already. Somebody said, has it started yet? And it was just, let me answer by text just in case. So Myrna, I wonder if Myrna, are you on? Because she was wondering if she was able to get on. Yep, she's here. Yay, great. So Myrna figured that out. At the bottom, there's a question, and you can post them there, and then that's something that I will do as far as checking in and making sure the panelists have those questions and that we answer them for you. So I should introduce myself. I'm Dr. Susan Coppage Evans, and I graduated from the University of Creation Spirituality with my doctorate in ministry in 2006. And I'm serving as the president of FICS Institute, and I live here in Colorado. So I feel really blessed and joyful to be serving with an amazing group of staff and some volunteers and some great faculty. I think as you guys take a look at our website, which is now live, foxinstitute-cs.org. Everything's there, and you can see all of our faculty that are lined up to take classes and read their bios. You can see the classes that are scheduled through December. And when you read some of those classes, it's very inspiring. It makes me happy that I'm going to be local and can sit in some of those classes. And I hope you'll feel the same way too. And then I want to let's see, hopefully I answered any questions. Let's see, one more question here. Oh, Rabbi Ruthie says, hi, I'm here. I'm glad you're here. And Ruthie will be moving you after Rabbi Gross and Dr. Perez Christie finish their parts. Then we're going to be inviting you and Reverend Dean to join us in the panel discussion, and we'll be able to move you to the live video. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about the website. I might even be able to share my screen and show that to you later. And I just want to introduce a couple of the folks, and then Ted will take it from there and introduce the rest. But I want to introduce Dr. Carol Bennington, who is our Dean of Students. And some of you have been doing a lot of email correspondence with Carol. And when folks, if you're even for applying to be a student or auditing, all of those things, when you apply and you fill out those forms, they go to Carol and she'll respond to you. So she's amazing, and she's in the process of moving to Boulder in the next couple weeks. So she's juggling all of the registration along with moving and packing boxes, and we're super grateful for her.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. And then I want to introduce Kip Hubbard, who is the newest person to our team. And this is just fabulous because I think most people have seen that we've been advertising for a director of marketing and outreach, someone to help us network and connect with folks. And we've done some interviewing, and Kip applied, and he and his wife have been living in Carbondale, Colorado, just about 3.5 hours away. And they had already planned to relocate back to Boulder, where they live. And Kip's wife, Robin, is a graduate of University of Creation Spirituality. She has her doctorate in ministry there. So Kip is another one of those supportive spouses that got to experience the program from that angle, and has an immense amount of nonprofit leadership, operational experience, marketing, and networking. So today was the last day of working with his prior job, and he's full-time focused with the FICS Institute going forward. So welcome, Kip. We're really happy, and we'll be happy for you to be back in Boulder too.
Well, thanks, Susan. I am really, really delighted and grateful to be with FICS Institute.
Yay. And then I'd like to introduce Dr. Theodore Richards, Ted, who is also one of our board members and was really at the very beginning of imagining the FICS Institute and rolling up his sleeves along with the rest of the board and doing what it took to get the school approved in Colorado and to create the structure of the school. So we're really grateful for him. And he has chaired the Academic Affairs Committee since the beginning of that committee and continues to do that. But he's also stepped on to be the director of the Academic Dean's Office. And so he is working with other department chairs and interacting with all faculty and really supporting us that way. So Ted's in Chicago, and we're super glad to have him here. And he's really going to be the moderator of the panel tonight. So welcome, Ted. And I'll let you do the rest of the introductions.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, so I mean, I really, you know, I'm a teacher like my colleagues here on the screen, and what I'd like to do is just sort of try to facilitate some kind of dialogue. We'll bring a couple other people on to give people a chance to meet some FICS faculty, and also, and specifically tonight, give a sense of how we approach Deep Ecumenism. I think this is like a moment in history when interfaith understanding is surely as important as ever. We're encountering one another all around the planet in ways that are often troubling and violent. But also, I think there are new opportunities for connection and interconnection as well. So I really envision a world and a worldview that's emerging in which the lines between faiths are increasingly blurred, and our opportunities to get to know one another are deeper. But this brings about a huge number of questions, I think. You know, how do we approach traditions in a deep and authentic way? How do we honor diversity without appropriating traditions we don't really truly understand? How do we understand the connections and unity of the spiritual traditions while also honoring their diversity? And how can we deepen our own tradition through ecumenical interfaith work? So these are all like really big questions. And I think that in creation spirituality, there is, Deep Ecumenism is a core value. And we're committed to kind of honoring this diversity and unity at the same time, and asking these questions in ways that don't give kind of simple, facile answers, but really seek to try to find and rest in the paradox of our chaotic world. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce our first panelist, Ana Perez Chisti, who is, well, she's a longtime faculty member at previous iterations of creation spirituality education, but she's going to be one of our faculty members at FICS focusing on Deep Ecumenism. And she has, you know, a lot of history. She's like myself, she's also a graduate of the California Institute of Integral Studies. That's right, isn't that right? Yeah. So we share that. In addition to sharing like a passion for Deep Ecumenism and interfaith work, we share that background. So she's active and a leader in the Sufi community. So and we're trying to, we've not represented the full kind of breadth of the interfaith world that we live in, but we've tried to find panelists from a few different traditions and get a few different perspectives. So I'll just ask her to talk for like, 7 to 10 minutes and just kind of give her take and her approach on Deep Ecumenism and how she sees that as part of integral to the creation spirituality tradition, and maybe talk a little about our course too if she's interested. So thank you for being here, Ana.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you everyone for coming to this webinar. It's such an honor to share with you this amazing tradition that FICS Institute is now gathering together. Such celebrated people who love this subject and love the idea of moving toward more interfaith or a global religion, a global consciousness about religion, because in actuality we're studying wisdom. So Deep Ecumenism to me is a path of wisdom that leads us to an understanding of how to look deep enough into the words and the scriptures of these religions so that we are not at the surface literalists, of words, that we are moving toward deeper meaning, deeper sensing of what the prophets have all delivered to us, have all given to us as hope for the community, as a way of coming together as a people in many faiths, many religions. So one of the important things about studying Deep Ecumenism that I have found in my life has been the connections that go down into the deeper river, the deeper waters of the meanings of things. You know, I often think of Jesus saying, you know, in the Christian religion, I don't come to destroy the law or the prophets. I come to fulfill the law and the prophets. And that essence is the step toward a greater globalism. It's a fulfilling of what the prophets who left the legacies of these transmitted religions are trying to say to us. All the prophets tried to help the people come together, help the people join together so that they could survive the unexpected realities of life. So when we look at what Deep Ecumenism means, we try to find what those prophets said in the sacred texts, for instance, in Hinduism, in the Upanishads, or in Buddhism, the suttas, the Digha Nikaya or the Majjhima Nikaya of Lord Buddha, the stories that are so profound about life and about how to meet life. And also the Zandavista of Zoroaster, the Gathas of Zoroaster, who try to show that the good mind, the good thoughts, and the good actions lead to something beneficial for the greater whole of humanity. So here, in essence, we begin to see that all prophets try to bring something special to help us with living. And this coordinates to our time right now, because one of the things that's happening that I see that is such a wonderful, why we study Deep Ecumenism and why it's such a wonderful study for our day, is that to go beyond the distinctions and differences that divide us into what connects us. And always when you study the religions of the world through the sense of Deep Ecumenism, and you know, there are many faiths in the principles of creation spirituality. There is the 11th principle. I have it before me to make sure that I reiterate it correctly. But you know, there are many wells of faith and knowledge drawing from one understanding of the river of divine wisdom. And it's the practice of honoring and the willingness to learn and to celebrate those wisdom traditions that are collected in all of the paths. And this is one of the principles of creation spirituality, and why we use this as a main subject of study. Because if we don't know the subjects, if we don't know the religions, and we don't enter the scriptural, the sacred holy writings of each religion, we have a tendency to be a little afraid of it. We stand off from it. We remove ourselves from exploring it. And what I hope to do in this course is to introduce some of the actual scriptural writings and discuss them and dive deeper into the meaning of it, the mystical meaning, as the Sufis say, of what we are looking at. And we begin to understand and we begin to see that there are similarities that are undisputable. They are really leading us into the same code of behavior, the same willingness to come together as a community and survive. And when I think about this, I therefore love the subject. And I also think that there is actually no new religion, even though we think in Deep Ecumenism that we're only studying past scripture, and there be some arguments, oh, well, that's the past. How is this applicable to today? Well, wisdom has no age. Wisdom is ageless. So what was written, regardless if it was translated multiple times, is still bringing us subject matter for investigation and questioning and regard. To just bring our heart to regarding what is said in the scriptures of the world gives us a chance to expand our capacity. And that expansion is really at the very core of Deep Ecumenism. So that we've all been brought up, I believe, as I have, in some religious doctrine, some method that meant a lot to our family and to our family's history. And these are all cherished codes that must be held with sacredness. And my religion and my code that comes from my family lineage might not be yours or anyone that's in our webinar now. And therefore the exchange of these codes, the exchange of these contributions that have come into your life and helped your life. I often ask that question in the class, by the way, is how did your faith help you in times of crisis? It's such a good question because I often have brought up, many stories have arisen in our classes about how a person's faith system has changed them and has helped them deal with issues that are incredibly difficult at times. And these stories open up the idea of connection and the idea of where the help from the prophets and from our religious doctrines assist us. Now, to the thoughtful person, and to those that are curious, which are always those that want to learn and those that come into creation spirituality, there is a sacred code that abides. And that sacred code is, I will be willing to listen to your perspective. Now, to me, that's the code that's going to save the future of the world. So in our institute, and why our institute is such a sacred community, is that we have come to these courses, we have come to these classes with that understanding that I will come here to respect what learning offers. And that is one of the great bonding capacities that happen within the classes. And you can see it with the graduates and with our old, as a matter of fact, we're going to be having a gathering here in where my home is in California with many of the faculty of creation spirituality at the end of July. We're all gathering together, and it seems like we've been together forever on this path of wisdom, on this journey of the soul. And we always stay together. And it was for me as a teacher to be with this community at the University of Creation Spirituality, which happened in Oakland and then in Boulder, Colorado at Naropa. These companionships that arise from this study are timeless. We've been together for decades, and we're always sharing life together because of what we've learned from the path that Deep Ecumenism offers, which is the way to regard with sacredness. We consecrate our relationships, we consecrate our day. And in that consecration gives the depth of understanding what Deep Ecumenism is about. So one can look at every path, every religion, as a way of consecrating a life. And what does consecration mean, actually? It means devoting our being to the divine impulse that guides us from within our own hearts. That's what consecration means to me. And what Deep Ecumenism is the core of its study. So I hope I answered, you know, some of the ideas or some of the questions that might arise as to why do we study Deep Ecumenism. I hope that gives a little bit of a vantage point. I don't want to take too much time, but Ed is.
Yeah, you know, I was just going to say we could talk about this for decades and still have just more questions, I think, and that's the point. Is not, you know, to create more and more questions, right?
Right.
But you know, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. I was thinking as you were talking, just quickly to build on a couple things you said. I loved what you said about listening. Listening is the lesson that my children always teach to me over and over again, how important it is to listen, you know. Not to tell them to listen to me, which I do sometimes, but really that what people really need and want is to be heard and listened to, and how healing and how community building that can be. I also just would note that, you know, your practice is in an ancient tradition, an old tradition that embraces Deep Ecumenism. Sometimes we think of this as like a new age modern invention, but it's in fact very old, and that's what creation spirituality tries to embrace as well. There are many examples of interfaith connections that have happened, you know, in ancient times. For example, the way that in China, the way that Chan Buddhism arose in this encounter between Buddhism and Taoism, right? Or the syncretism of African religion and Christianity in the New World. So there are many examples of that. But I think in Deep Ecumenism, there are a lot of negative things we can talk about with religion, for sure. We don't want to close our eyes to those things. But I think the idea is to look at a tradition and try to think, what are the gifts that it brings? You know, what are the gifts that other people bring?
Right.
So we have a lot of people that are bringing gifts tonight. So I want to get to my newest friend, Rabbi Victor Gross, and we spoke. I'm not sure how he's going to contain his words about Ecumenism in the little box that he is on the screen, because we could have talked, I think, for hours and hours and hours the other day. So you know, just really quickly. So Victor's a graduate of University of California at Berkeley, where he did his PhD, and he's dedicated to paradigm shifting, which is pretty cool that he emphasizes. And he's currently in, which is really nice for us, he's in Boulder, Colorado, although I think you're not in Boulder right now, right? Are you on the East Coast somewhere in New York?
Yeah, I'm in the Hudson Valley.
Right, okay. And so I would just sort of like to ask Victor to kind of build a little bit on, and mention your course as well, because your course is really, the course that you're teaching with us is really cool, and it's a great name anyway. So I haven't taken the course, but it sounds good. So you could say something about that, and just about your approach to Deep Ecumenism in your tradition too. So that would be great. Maybe 7 to 10 minutes, similar to what Dr. Perez just did.
Well, first,
so welcome, Victor.
I feel more than welcomed. I feel embraced. I mean, it's like coming home after being in the wilderness. We have one of our books that we happen to be reading in the synagogue now, in the cycle of readings. It's called the Book of Numbers, but it really is the story of our journey in the wilderness, trying to get home, all right? And a whole generation has to wait to get home. And I'm hopeful that this is the generation that figures it out. What does it have to figure out? The way I approach Deep Ecumenism is to start from an alarmist position, which is on good standing, because for thousands of years, people didn't get along with each other, primarily because of religious differences. And we are living in an amazing age, which for me was born with Vatican II. Because in Vatican II, my first outstanding teacher, who's one of the people we're going to be looking at, Abraham Joshua Heschel. When I was at the seminary in New York and had cultivated a relationship with him, he wasn't always around. And the reason why he wasn't around was that he was representing the Jewish people at Vatican II to negotiate with Cardinal Bea a schema on the Jews. And the result of it was two important acts that took around 1700 years to get to. The first agreement was that the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, would no longer hold the Jewish people responsible for the death of Jesus. For those who can understand the import of that, that's pretty big. For those who can't, just figure on an awful lot of discrimination, deaths, pogroms, simply because we as Jews were held responsible for that. So no longer. The second decision that was made was that no longer would it be an object of the Roman Catholic Church to try to convert the Jews to Christianity and accept Jesus as their Savior. Enough people were burned at the stake over years and years and years, all across Europe and into the Middle East, because they wouldn't. That was the beginning experience that I had with something that was not called Deep Ecumenism at the time. It was just finally coming to grips with a historical, unfortunate horror for one side of population, and for the other side, I think a toxicity that could be called a spiritual toxicity. So what really brought me to Deep Ecumenism are the next two in my course, which is called, thanks to Susan, The Three Amigos, which will be a study of Abraham Joshua Heschel, certainly the first half of the 20th century, the most significant theologian, not only in the Jewish world, but really for the Western spiritual tradition. He was the first Jew invited to teach at Union Theological Seminary in New York. And that was a significant event. So he was also one of the first to translate Eastern European Jewish spirituality into 1950s, 1960s American English, not in a non-scholarly way. He evoked the spiritual possibility and condition for people, irrespective of where they came from, what spiritual tradition, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Zoroastrian, Sufi. The second one that I'm going to be teaching about is Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who was for many, many years a resident of Boulder, was, I think, the first occupant of the Worldly Wisdom Chair at Naropa, and the founder of what's called Jewish Renewal, which I am a practitioner of. And I was able since 2000 until his death just 3 years ago. And today is the anniversary of his death. And so it's a tradition for Jews who give over a teaching to give it over in honor or in memory of somebody. So I do that to my teacher, my colleague, my friend, Reb Zalman. Reb Zalman borrowed the term from his friend, Matthew Fox, and gave over a teaching in 1998 to over 100 rabbis in upstate New York called Deep Ecumenism. And of those 100 rabbis, most of them didn't get it. And he had this amazing practice. He was a Sufi master. And so the first 2 days he taught wearing a Sufi outfit. And then on the third day, he came in the morning, he was wearing shorts, his Birkenstocks, and everybody's murmuring, why is he dressed differently? And after finished leading us all in a wordless melody, he said, you're probably wondering why I'm dressed differently. It's because you just didn't get it. And I have to start over. And what they didn't get, I would sum up in a statement from Tuesday with Maury. When Maury was given over all his little bits of wisdom, there was one bit of wisdom he repeated over and over again, both in the movie and in the book. He said, "We'll either learn to love one another or we will surely die." And that was an impetus from the negative place to really get to the work. And so let me very briefly go back in time and to move it forward. That I remember as a child growing up in a small town, in our synagogue, what was called the ecumenical service happened once a year, all right? This and the members of one of the local churches came to our synagogue on Friday evening, and they would sing and hear American religious pluralism extolled as the finest example of civic religious practice. That's what I got year after year. Right? And I recall getting to go to their Sunday services instead of having to go to Sunday school at our synagogue and listen to their prayers and their music, their language about God, and a complimentary sermon by their pastor. It was clear that this was courtesy visits on both sides, that we were expected to be respectful of each other, except in private, we knew full well that only one of us could be right, and that was us. And it's what Reb Zalman refers to as triumphalism, that in the end of things, when the Messiah comes or returns, somebody's going to say, I was right, and the other is going to have to acknowledge they were wrong. That's being highly triumphalist. 14 years ago, as a result of Reb Zalman's teachings and Heschel's acts, our congregation in Boulder began a relationship with the Lutheran Church. Over the years, we came to learn how to pray together without any dilution of prayer, to understand and to avoid any form of syncretism or appropriation of the other, to engage in acts of kindness in the community jointly, to do the repair that can be done, and to study together. We just completed a few months ago a 7-week study of what does kindness mean. And not only study it, but they had spiritual practice for each week to engage in acts of kindness, to imagine the other in the supermarket, on a bus, in a store, to see them and to acknowledge them as holy beings, and to avoid any act that would not be one of kindness. Right? So it's not only the academics, it's also the most important aspect of it is the practice. So for the past 15 years, in the Jewish Renewal Theological Seminary, which is a seminary without walls, there are just a few required courses and a lot of electives. One of the courses that's required of every student is Deep Ecumenism. And I get to teach it. And one of the things that I want them to do when they get ordained is to become practitioners of Deep Ecumenism in their community. And I would say that probably over 100 students, and I would say maybe 40% get it 100%, and that they are practitioners in their community not of the superficial stuff that passes sometimes as ecumenism, but the deep stuff. Much of the stuff that we just heard from you, Anna. So again, to conclude, I'm really happy to come home to where the values, the spiritual effort is really going to be made manifest. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. That was great. I think it's worth noting, and there's a lot to be said about this, that creation spirituality has always embraced not deep ecumenism generally, but also specifically in its approach to the Bible, has always looked at sort of rediscovering the Jewish wisdom tradition, and for people who are rooted in a Christian, have a Christian background, that it's makes little sense to be Christian and sort of not embracing that tradition, because much of the Christian Bible is rooted in that. So you know, it's interesting because I come to this place not particularly rooted in any tradition, but I'm interested. Can we actually bring Rabbi Ruth Gelfarb on now? So we've got a couple of rabbis. I wanted to invite her on and see if it works. I'm always amazed when it works. You're sort of sideways.
Sort.
Okay, there you go.
Hi, Ruby.
So welcome. So I just wanted to ask you, so we're going to invite a couple people to sort of like ask some follow-up questions too before we kind of shift. So I was hoping, Ruth is also a rabbi out in Boulder, although I realized today she has some connections in Chicago as well, right near where I live in Chicago. And so, but I'm curious though, what it is about your own tradition, like for somebody who's really deeply rooted as a rabbi, really deeply rooted in your tradition, what is it about your tradition itself that has drawn you to Deep Ecumenism?
So before I get there, I want to thank you so much for having two rabbis, because whenever there's conversations that brings people in from different backgrounds or traditions, I always feel like when there's one person, then people think, well, that's what a rabbi looks like. And so Victor has the beautiful beard and mustache, and I don't, but we're both rabbis. So this is what a rabbi looks like as well. A few things. First, when you said that this deep listening we're talking about, one of the really core prayers in Judaism that I'd say most Jews know who don't know any other prayers is the Shema. It's Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Pay attention, listen deeply, and that's something that we're all, called to do. So I feel like that's, a starting place. There also is very much in our tradition that the pursuit of peace is something that is like one of the highest values in our tradition, as in many. And the idea of peace is not, blurring over differences or ignoring, but really understanding the dark side, the light side of our own past and traditions, as well as others. And when you sort of try to cut that out and make it simplistic, that you really will never have peace, because there's not a genuine understanding and experiencing. I think also though, so I think those are two core pieces. If I may, I also though was interested in let me know if if that's okay to talk a little bit more about from a personal experience as well.
Sure.
So, as somebody who served in the military in the U.S., I would say that was my most rich experience, and serving as a Navy chaplain, because I had very concrete ideas about other people and other traditions that would kind of be murmured behind the scenes in my family and my seminary. And it was by forming deep relationships that were real with other people of a myriad of traditions that I started to understand the language that they spoke. And I think we all do speak, we all have our own unique languages, and we can begin to learn the language of other people's spiritual traditions, each of which has its own unique flavor and character and emphasis. Yet at the same time, they're each unique, and I am always wary of having any kind of appropriation that goes on around that. And that happened as well at times. And that I thought was, made me very, very uncomfortable. But that beginning to understand other people's languages helps you understand their world, and it's by understanding their world and their spirituality that I think that peace can, begin to be reached among us.
Thank you. I'd like to hear more, but I do want to we have one more panelist, and I want to give her a chance to get on it. And I know there's other people waiting to do a little bit more about, so we'll see. And there she is. Hi, Anne. So Reverend Ann Dean, I do feel like, I feel like we're trying to have some kind of diversity of panelists here, because we're talking about deep ecumenism, but it's sort of, it always feels like there are too many traditions left out here a little bit. It's impossible to get everyone in. So we've got a little sampling of, but I don't want to give people the impression that we are talking only about understanding kind of Abrahamic faiths either. So I just want to make that clear, that we're talking about like traditions all around the world, including indigenous traditions and all. So Anne is a board member, a founding board member at the Fox Institute, and she's coming from a Christian tradition. I think sometimes for people who are kind of in coming from a Christian tradition, particularly in a country that is predominantly Christian, I think sometimes we think about Deep Ecumenism as everything but Christianity. So we wanted to sort of like, I know we have some, there are some people at the school who are rooted in that tradition as well. And I think, Anne, as someone who's really also rooted in the creation spirituality tradition, I just sort of wanted to bring her in from that perspective, and how creation spirit, what's unique, and for you, I guess I'd like to hear what's unique about creation spirituality's approach to Deep Ecumenism, and how it's strengthened your own faith and your own kind of spiritual practice. Or just talk about whatever.
Ted. That's a wonderful question, and I'm just honored to be part of this group and so happy to be part of this important conversation. Well, I have to tell you a creation spirituality story that I just heard this afternoon. So I was in a mission group meeting out at our retreat center, which is called Day Spring, about 20 miles, I guess, northwest of Washington, D.C., which is where I live. And I'd actually been reading a poem by Mary Oliver, which just begins with, "My work is loving the world," which I think we all are speaking to today. And a woman came into the meeting from our permaculture garden and had just been with a little girl about 8 years old who was planting flowers in the garden, and she was only on the property because she's part of a Jewish camp that's using Dayspring for a few weeks. And so she was very excited about getting her plant in the ground. And the woman who was helping her plant it is a volunteer in the garden who's a Muslim. And after the plant was in the ground, Emily, the adult woman, said, "I'd really like to say a prayer for this plant and our experience of planting it together from the Quran." And so she said her prayer in Arabic, and then she translated it. And I'm just picturing, as I'm hearing this story, this little girl, whose name, of course, was Sophie. Right? So after the woman translated her prayer, the Jewish camp leader said, "That's amazing. I think we have almost exactly the same prayer in my tradition." And then he said that prayer, basically thanking the Creator, for the gifts, in Hebrew. And then he translated it. And they were saying the same prayer from these two different traditions. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is the permeability of the beauty and goodness and devotion from our traditions, all of them, and finding that common ground. And literally today, this little girl experienced that common ground with these adults from 2 different religious traditions. And that just made me so happy, because the earth is the best gathering place of all. And I guess in the early 90s, I started a group in the church offices where I was working, where we had people come from all different religious traditions. And it was very difficult to find them, because the intent was deep contemplative prayer. And in Washington, D.C., people are very interested in learning, and having dialogue, but to actually come together to pray together and to listen to people lead. We just rotated who would lead. So this was a beginning in my life of moving beyond ecumenical, which I grew up thinking was including various traditions within Christianity, Catholicism and Protestantism. And I think that was really the thrust after Vatican II within Christianity. But then, of course, Matt came up with this wonderful phrase, Deep Ecumenism. And that just moved me so much that I wanted to be with people in other traditions in the depths of our devotion, and to share the practices that had deepened our faith, and to lead each other in the practices from different traditions. And then out of that, to get to know each other better and to get involved in each other's lives. And that's exactly what happened. And we did that for many years. But it was always in an office, and in Washington, it was usually going to people's celebrations, meetings, parties, homes, not like Sophie experienced today. Feeling those roots go into the earth, and then listening to these beautiful prayers of blessing and gratitude from 2 different religious traditions.
So Anne, I'm gonna ask you to hold that thought, because I think you have possibly more to say, and I think all of the panelists have more to say. I have more to say too, but we've got a lot to get through today. So a few more people are going to talk about kind of some updates from the FICS Institute. So I'm going to kind of step aside and let those folks do that. But possibly towards the end of this, maybe we'll have some time for some more. But the other thing is, if you feel like this has been cut short and would like to learn more, you can always sign up for a class or become a student. So so you can only get so much for on the webinar. So I believe that, so I just want to say, in the event that we don't hear more from the panel, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and just like your work in the world as well. I personally appreciate that a lot. So
Same to you.
And
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I just have to say, I'm really excited about working with you all. Like in this role at the FICS Institute, I'm excited about getting to know you all better and hearing more from you. So,
and we have some time at the end for questions that we've built into our schedule. We're running just a little bit beyond,
yeah.
But we really do plan to circle around. So I just want to remind folks that might have logged on late that at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A. And so if this discussion raised a question for you that you would like us to circle around and address, if we have extra time, I just would encourage you to put that question there, and we'll work to get to that, because we're listening. We didn't talk that Rabbi Ruth Gelfarb is going to be teaching Art is Meditation coming up in January, so she's part of our faculty, and so you're getting a little bit of taste just in some of the conversations about our professors and the quality and interest and intrigue and frank joyfulness. I mean, the intention of deep listening and peace is, inspires me. And Rabbi Gross, I'm so glad that you recognize that this was the 3rd anniversary of Reb Zalman's death, and we are, we intentionally are having you teach early in the school year so that we can recognize Reb Zalman's memory, in Boulder, and the impact that he's had, and the friendship, the true friendship that Reb and Matthew Fox had. So thank you, and it just is inspiring for me, and also that we, the fact that we had this on Thursday instead of Saturdays, we've been sort of hosting our webinars on the Sabbath. So that hasn't been very deeply ecumenical. So we're sort of shifting that so that we can not be on the Sabbath when we're having our webinars all the time. So I want to introduce, and I think what I'll do, because we have so many people on the screen, I want to remind people that are watching that if you tap on the top and just put speaker view instead of gallery view, then you'll see the person speaking larger, and it won't be so like it's a huge room. I'd like to invite Dr. Marvin Anderson, who is our board chair, to join us and to talk to us about the doctoral programs. There he is from Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Marvin.
Welcome.
And so you're going to sort of share with us, and we've already had, some people write and say, we can't wait to hear about the doctoral program. So and I have a document that I can share as you want to walk through that, but let me know when you're ready for that. Maybe you want to give an overview first.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
introduce yourself too a little bit.
Okay. Marvin Anderson, and I'm a visiting fellow at the Center for Reformation and Renaissance Studies here in Toronto, but I've had the privilege of teaching and supervising dozens of ministry students in a Christian theological education. And before I start to talk about the 2 doctoral programs, I just want to, it's so wonderful to hear these stories and to meet some of the people who will be teaching for us. And we talk about joy, it's like, the joy just kind of emanates, and it's really amazing. So I look forward to teaching with you as well, as Ted mentioned. But I want to remind folks that while many of us are Christian, and often doctor of ministry programs, for the most part, are often offered at seminaries and theological schools, the Deep Ecumenism, which is actually a requirement for each of the 2 doctoral programs, Deep Ecumenism is the anchor, I think, or the seedbed for what we're doing here. And so I can't make the perfect segue from our previous speakers, but I think it does set the stage for, we want to invite people to consider our doctoral programs, because no matter who they are, where their faith is, how they understand that, how it's anchored, they can flourish, I think, through these 2 programs if they so feel moved to pursue them. So just briefly, since we only have a few minutes, the Doctor of Ministry program, and I just want to reiterate some of the actual text from our website. But the Doctor of Ministry program is, as with most Doctor of Ministry programs, is designed to help people who are already in the field, who are already working, to be able to reflect more thoughtfully, more mindfully, more prayerfully on the context of their ministry, their work. And we're not just thinking of people who are ordained or who are serving in professional ministry per se, but as with the whole program for FICS, we're giving courage to people to take seriously their own calling. Why are you here? Why are you here on this earth? And what are you doing with your life? And how can we help you go deeper and delve deeper into what that means for you, especially in your context, what you have been doing, what you want to be doing, and what you feel called to do. And so the Doctor of Ministry program is really intended to help you in that process. And one of probably the most succinct statement is to help students explore a concept, a spiritual practice, a communal experience, or some kind of personal embodiment of creation spirituality. and to pursue that obviously in more depth, intellectually, practically, spiritually, so that you can then take that back or use that and applying it to the work that you feel called to do presently or have been doing or choose to do. And now may be a good time, Susan, just to put on the screen the required courses for the Doctor of Ministry program.
Okay, it's there.
So as with most of our programs, the 6 core classes, you can read them on the screen. Introduction to Creation Spirituality, the Emerging New Cosmology, as we've already heard, the depth and wealth of Deep Ecumenism, Interspirituality, and the Wisdom Traditions. And Anna, I think, especially gave voice to how critical and imperative a recovery of wisdom is. Fourthly, the reinvention of work, leadership, and culture. We certainly need that at this point in time. And then mystics, East and West, and then mind, meditation, and mystical practices. And so these courses then will be required, and then you can choose 4 electives, and then a doctoral project, which is, as you can read, you want to identify and develop some kind of theoretical and intellectual basis or conceptual basis for a project. You want to describe that project, and then propose how do you want to implement it, and then report on it, and then evaluate it. And how does that apply to, and how does that reflect and anchor some of the themes and principles of creation spirituality in reference to the work you're called to do, your ministry, or your professional work. Susan, do we want to ask people to ask questions now about the DMin itself before we move on to the Doctor of Spirituality?
Okay, sure. Does anybody, and the questions, if it'd be best not to put in chat, remember the questions are at the bottom of the screen, it says Q&A. And right now we don't have any specific questions being asked, so I think maybe we'll go on to the next one.
Okay.
I think people are waiting.
Sure. And
not specifically about the Doctor of Ministry.
Okay.
And I can say, because we were talking about who in this group had the Doctor of Ministry, and I was executive director of a psychiatric facility when I did my Doctor of Ministry. So I was really happy that you said that this isn't just for, it can be for a clerical, the ministerial person, but it really is for reinventing the work that you're a part of. Right, and exactly. Studying that. So I found that to be true. So thank you. And then the next one is here.
Right, right. And the FICS Institute is probably the first university to offer a doctoral degree in spirituality as such. When I was curious about a program like this, well, back in the 80s, early 80s, when I was looking into a doctoral program, I was looking for a program in spirituality. And now we have one. I mean, there are PhDs and there are DMins, but this is a different degree. And we're excited about offering this doctorate in spirituality, doctorate of spirituality. And you might ask, why an SPD and not a PhD? Well, again, as with consistent and commensurate with the FICS Institute, we're serious both about learning and wisdom and knowing and learning to ask the right questions and using our minds and being engaged by them and with them, but at the same time, we're serious about spiritual practice and how do we integrate and incorporate those in canon with each other so they actually inform and feed each other. And in a doctoral program like this, a doctorate of spirituality, there'll be an opportunity for students to do exactly that. Again, the 6 core courses, almost the same as the Doctor of Ministry, with the exception that the 2 that are not included or required are the reinvention of work and mind, meditation, and mystical practices that's more pertinent to the Doctor of Ministry degree. And instead, we have these number 5 readings on creation spirituality, as well as number 6. And number 5 is in which students will gain a knowledge of a broad spectrum. And we've already been exposed to it, in such a wonderful way this evening. A broad spectrum of the diversity of people and what constitutes creation spirituality. And so students will be able to compare and contrast various concepts and further deepen their understanding of this breadth of this paradigm of creation spirituality. And number 6, drawing wisdom from the well of the sacred texts. As several of you have noted, it's like there's so much wealth in our sacred text that we don't know, especially if we've been dependent upon our own traditions, holy text. And this course, I'm excited that there'll be opportunity for doctoral students in spirituality to do further textual analysis and using hermeneutical tools and exegesis to engage at a doctoral level scholarship and research, to delve even deeper and to really mine the gems that are found in those texts. And then we have as a requirement for electives, as well as a doctoral dissertation, and you can read for yourself the requirements for the dissertation. I just want to highlight that that this research, which and as I've learned from my Jewish brothers and sisters as well as others, it's like, study is prayer. With this kind of research is the opportunity to incorporate and assimilate, which is the word we use for digesting, okay? Eating holy stuff, okay? Incorporate and assimilate other creative work, teaching, spiritual practices, and other projects that contribute to the understanding and thrust of your own research topic. So students will be able to demonstrate their knowledge and expertise of the dissertation topic they choose through the dissertation, which has to be approved, of course, by a dissertation committee, and meet all the requirements as specified. And of course, the completion of the SBD or DSP, whatever you want to call it, is contingent on a successful oral defense of the dissertation. So are there any questions from anyone who is listening to this?
Yes, we do have a couple questions. One we can answer pretty quickly to Myrna. Yes, you need to have a master's degree in order to do the PhD program. And we do have sort of a shortcut. That doesn't sound very academic, but we help people do a terminal degree that if you do the master's program, and then you have a fewer classes to take for the doctoral program. So you can start with the master's and finish with the doctoral program. So that answers Myrna's question. But yes, in order to do the PhD, you have to have the master's first. And it can be a master's in any discipline, which is different than a lot of religious seminary and traditional religious education for doctorate of ministry, where you're required to have a master's of divinity in order to get a doctorate of ministry. And here you can have a master's in any discipline, bring that to your doctoral work and really flesh that out. It's a great program. And then Adrian asks, can one go beyond just one religion as a base? In other words, address interfaith perspectives applied to a spiritual topic. She says that she does arts as a spiritual practice, but prefers the title of Doctor of Ministry rather than Doctor of Spirituality. And so I think that brings up, like, yes, of course, we would, that's part of Deep Ecumenism, is that we encourage people to bring those different traditions to their studies and into their dissertation or their doctoral project. But I think maybe, Marvin, it might be nice to explain, like, why would somebody get a doctorate of spirituality versus a doctorate of ministry? So it's not just the title, but maybe the intention. Just, you could compare those two. That might be helpful to Adrian.
Can I just say one thing real quick? Just about
feel free and jump in.
Approach, because it's we've tried to bring in people who are rooted in certain traditions just to show the breadth and different perspectives, but there are certainly people who don't have that rootedness, and I would be an example of that myself. Like, I don't have a specific tradition but I do have a connection to a few different traditions that I've drawn from in my work through creation spirituality. So just wanted to reemphasize that.
In response to Adrian's question, and it's an excellent question, and thanks for asking it, Adrian. I think what makes the doctor of ministry degree and program distinct and to differentiate it from the Doctor of Ministry track is that the Doctor of Spirituality program, like a PhD, for example, is more of a original academic research program and trajectory that's trying to, use research to enhance the foundation in terms of our understanding of things and to make a further contribution to the public knowledge of creation spirituality. And it's not that the Doctor of Ministry program is any less rigorous in its academic, intellectual investigation, but the Doctor of Spirituality program, and Ted, feel free to chime in here, is more focused on trying to look at how can that research benefit our understanding of creation spirituality. Ted, you want to?
No, I think that's well said, Marvin. I don't have a lot to add other than, like thinking about, the Doctor of Spirituality as you said, and the Doctor of Ministry focused on one's work in the world. We're thinking of ministry in a broader sense, like, Susan pointed out with her own work. That was her ministry. She's not kind of, clerical, so to speak, but certainly her work in the world is ministerial, or in the sense that we're using it. So it's about your work in the world and your practice in the world, whereas we're talking about with the Doctor of Spirituality research that we think can benefit in terms of like thinking through problems and questions and those kinds of things. But there's of course a lot of overlap between these things. And there aren't hard, fine lines between them. I think it's more of a question of, and we're happy, and one of the things we'll do with you is, if you're interested in the program, we'll kind of talk through what your interests are in more detail, because I think and really figure out then what you're most drawn to is how the process would work. It's not that you have to have it completely figured out from the very beginning, but we're happy to kind of like talk through and see what your interests are and what calls you. Yeah.
And just to add by conclusion, I think that numbers 5 and 6 that I briefly referred to in the Doctor of Spirituality program, those highlight, I think, what's so unique and singular about the Doctor of Spirituality program, because there's more focus on going deeper into the research and the sacred texts, investigating them, studying them, using the best of the exegesis as well as interfaith dialogue and criticism. So it's more focused on that kind of investigation that obviously has its practical consequences, but may not be as given over to a more professional or practical ministry kind of impact as with the Doctor of Ministry program. Any further questions?
Marvin.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we're good. We're good with the questions. Awesome. So I'm going to just give a really quick update just to shake it up a little bit, and then we're going to come back and talk about admissions and that process, and Carol's going to share about that. And then Kip, if you have things to jump in on this part too, that we can tag team this. But I first wanted to share, today was a really wonderful day because we have been working for months. We worked for months and months and months to find a physical place for the school, and ran into a lot of zoning issues with regards to classroom space and parking and things like that. And so we had about 3 or 4 significant dead ends that we ran into before we were introduced to the First Congregational Church of Boulder, which is a UCC church, United Church of Christ. And they had a school in the lower half of their church. It's a beautiful church. They have so much art. They have, Friday art. You get to go there, just like you get to go to any gallery. You can stop by the church, and they host First Fridays. They had a school, a cooking school, for 10 years in their church, and then that school left, and just at the time we were looking at that next option, we were introduced to them. So we have been working with them and negotiating our lease, and we have a beautiful 1,100 square foot carriage house that was built in the 1860s that we are remodeling for our staff offices. And then we have about 5,000 square feet of classroom space in that lower level. It's still ground level of the church, and we have a separate entrance, and it's just everything that we would want. It has a huge, the Plymouth Hall is a big hall underneath the church, is big enough for us to do dance and movement and just to spread out. And we have, in addition to that, multiple other classrooms as well. So today, we completed the lease. They've signed. We've signed. I've written the security deposit, and so so the whole the board is here celebrating. It's a really great day. So just to let you know about that space, and we'll be sharing more. And as we're renovating, getting ready for the start of our classes, which is October 16th, we'll put some pictures on the website and let you enjoy that process too of transforming the space to be really unique and special for the Fox Institute. And so it's right in downtown Boulder. People can fly in and stay at a hotel and take a shuttle or a bike or walk just a block and a half off of Pearl Street if people know Boulder. So it's a really wonderful place and very close to open space and hiking trails and those kinds of things. So we're looking forward to creating a real sense of hospitality for our students. So I just wanted to share that piece. And the other, we have a real home, a three-dimensional home, and we have a two-dimensional home on the website. And we're pretty excited about that too. And you can go and visit. In fact, I might just share for just 2 seconds so I can brag how beautiful we think our website is and how functional it is. So I will, here we go. So let's see. We're getting better at this. So wow. Here is the Fox Institute for Creation Spirituality, and we have lots of information that you can learn about our pedagogy, a lot of the things that we're talking about, the history of our school. I love this page on vocation. You can hear and look at what other people have done with this education. It has the bios of the board and leadership, and some updated news like on our opening gala that we're having October 21st, Saturday, and inviting a big open house and then a celebration that night. And so that tells you about that. Lots about, all the different degree programs, non-degree education, a list of our faculty with small bios, and the course list, which are those basic courses, similar to what Marvin was pointing out there. And then all the information about admissions. And this is what Carol, she wants you to see this. She wants you to come here, read about the process, learn all about this, and then apply online so that she can receive your application. So there's everything that you need there. Community really talks about the communities that we're a part of, talks a little bit about Boulder and what's interesting in Boulder. And we'll continue to provide more information about lodging, and then it also talks about the spiritual communities that are in Boulder. So when you come visit, we encourage you to be a part of that. And then also just our connections with Creation Spirituality Communities and the Matthew Fox Legacy Project. And then when you click on course schedule, and that'll just take me a minute, you'll, whoops, maybe I clicked twice. There we go. So when you click on course schedule, you'll see the courses that are coming in October, and then you can read more about who's offering them, get a description, and the register now, you'll be doing that after you apply. In the future, after people are students, they can go right to here and apply right away. But since we're just starting new, everybody's, applying to be a student first and then registering for classes. But all the classes, and here we have classes through December posted. So we're pretty excited about that and encourage you to visit. Okay, Kip, do you want to chime in and share any good news that folks need to have? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, no, I am really excited. I'm even more excited to be at the Fox Institute for Creation Spirituality after hearing everybody speak today. This is so exciting. I grew up as in the Congregational Church. I married a Jewish woman, and our girls are being raised Jewish, and I call myself a born-again Jew, and I'm really I'm excited about ecumenism and just being part of the organization. My role, my title at FICS is Director of Outreach and Communication. I see my job as building community in all of those capacities. So I will be doing marketing, advertising, PR, community outreach, collaborative outreach with other communities that want to share in what the Fox Institute is doing. I will be dabbling in operations a little bit as well. I just want to go through a couple things really quickly. We haven't talked about it yet, but our grand opening gala is happening October 21st, Saturday night, between our 2 October blocks of classes, and we are really excited. Susan and I and the leadership team are putting together what we think will be a really inspiring and memorable weekend. So I hope people will not only come and sign up for classes, but also stay for this wonderful kickoff event that we're planning. So as the communications person, for everybody that's listening, if you have any challenges with communicating with the Fox Institute, please reach out to me. Susan showed you on the website where the leadership tab is, and you can click down there and you can go and you can email me if you have any issues with anything that has to do with communicating or reaching out or getting information from us. Also, I really want to put out there too that we love ideas. We have a constant contact e-newsletter that we're putting out on a monthly basis, and one of the sections of the newsletter is called In Awe, and it is designed to be something that inspires. And so if you have ideas about that, please shoot me an email. And if it's a photo, if it's a story, if it's something, a link to an inspiring passage or whatever it might be, please share that. Also, I really encourage everybody to join our mailing list. We want to communicate well with people. We have a Facebook page that is pretty active. We are kicking off a Twitter account, and we have an active email list that we are trying to build. So if you don't see yourself getting communication, again, please email me and I will put you on the email list. So really anything that has to do with building community and collaborative ideas, especially for any of our panelists within your own community, if you find that there's an opportunity for us to collaborate or to get our messages out to your group of participants, we would love to do that, and I'm the person to do that. So again, I'm just really tickled. My wife is a DMin, as Susan mentioned, and I've had a peripheral understanding of Matthew Fox's work and also of the DMin program. So I'm just thrilled to be part of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kip. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And the gala is in the evening, which will be a big celebration, but we're also having an open house during the day and inviting the community. So we're going to have, I call it a smorgasbord. It's like a tasting of different artist meditations and seminars so people can have a sense of what the school is about. And I know that we have a lot of professors that come to our webinars, and I'm hoping that you sign up for classes too. Yeah, a great example is Mary Riemann, who's teaching Intro to Creation Spirituality, and then staying for the gala and staying the next week to take Beck Barek's class on mystical poetry and Mirabai Starr's artist meditation. So we have a pretty robust auditing opportunity for Doctorate of Ministry alumni and faculty, and really encourage folks to see the launch as a way to support the school beyond even teaching. So for the students and faculty to join together, I am really looking forward to October being just a fabulous month for the Fox Institute. But this time, we're not even that terribly behind time. We're going to welcome Carol and for you to share with us about what's involved in registration.
Well, like Kip, I'm even more excited than I was before, and I really didn't think that was possible. So I really enjoy listening to everybody. I want to take all those classes too. So hopefully you do too. So, but how do you do that? So Susan, you would share the document. I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
So, the criteria for taking the class to being admitted is for the certificates and degree programs, and for auditing, you need a bachelor's degree or equivalent, and then for the doctoral program, you need a master's degree. So that's the first step in getting going. So the next steps I'm going to show you, you can also find on the website. We have a set of documents called application documents under the admissions tab on our website, so you can find this in the future too. So we have easy steps to applying. So the first step is the admission application, and I do want to point out it's for all programs, so certificates, master's degree, doctoral degree, and the auditing. So it's a one application for everybody. So that's a step everybody completes. And then for the degree programs, you need to send transcripts to us from your institutions that you took your classes, your degrees with. And then the third thing is a resume showing your academic endeavors, work experience, and creative projects. The fourth one is letters of recommendation. And two of them, one professional and one personal. And then the fifth thing is a statement of interest. For certificate and master's degrees, the length of this should be 1,500 words. For doctoral students, 2,000 words. For both of the letters of recommendation and the statement of interest, under the website, they're under the degree program, it does give more information of questions of, you know, a little more format of questions to complete for those statements of interest and letters of recommendation. And then when you're applying, then there's also the application fee. So for the degree programs, or the programs, certificate and degree programs, it's $100, and for auditors, it's $35. So then, and you can either apply online and do payments there, or in those documents up at the top where it says the application documents, there is a application document if you prefer to download it and mail it in. That's another option. So for auditors, it's the same steps as above, except you need your admission application. You can skip 2, 3, and 4, and then you need a brief statement of interest, and then your application fee as well. Susan mentioned that there are a couple different auditing options, and again, there's more information in the web under the non-degree options, but basically the 3 options for auditing are prospective students and general public. That is, everybody takes the same intensives, whether you're auditing or taking it for a program. The option under this one is if you complete the post paper, which is optional, but if you complete the post paper at a later date, you can get credit if you choose to enroll in a program. So you're taking it that way. The second option, Doctor of Creation Spirituality alumni. So if you fall into that category, it's seen more, it's considered continuing education. So the process of applying is the same. However, you can get a 40% discount because it's continuing education and it does not count for any program or degree in the future. And then the third option we're calling the Evans Plan, and then that is for a spouse or partner if they wish to attend the intensive with you. Again, that is for no credit and a non-degree, but that also entitles a 40% discount. And more details for all of these things are on the website. We're just trying to give you an overview of your options and how you can come. So once you apply in any of those fashions, you'll get a confirmation letter, and in that confirmation letter, you're going to get a student ID, which is then going to act as your password. So then you can go register, and all these wonderful choices to register courses for. So you can, as Susan showed you, you can go to the course schedule tab and see the courses listed below. And actually, there are many ways to get to the registration page, but that may be the most direct one. And then click on the course you wish to attend. That will take you to the registration page. And then just as an outline of what to expect when you get there, you'll enter your student ID, and then your contact information, and then you select one seminar and one artist meditation. So for that first week of intensives, you have 3 choices of seminars and 3 choices of artist meditations, but you can only choose one. It's going to be a hard choice, but I think you can do it. So then after you make your selections, there are some registration fees. I want to explain this because to be clear. So if you're in a certificate or degree program, for one time only, the first time you take an intensive, there's a registration fee. So there's a box there that if you are a certificate or degree student and it's your first time, then you check that box and it will enter that fee. So then the next time you take a course, you make sure you uncheck that box because you've already paid that fee. And then likewise, if you're auditing a course, there's a box for a registration fee because that's a lower registration fee and that's per intensive. And now that you've done all that stuff, you get to press save and then you get to go to the payment options and you fill out that like typical payment form. But I do want to point out you can pay online with a credit card, or if you prefer, you can send a check, and where you send it and all that information's there. So anyways, you'll send it to us. Now, what you may find is a little different. So if at the end of registering, you'll see this come up, but you will also see it on the website if you go to My Registration tab. But what is it, you might ask? Well, here is what it is. So with the company we're using for the registration, if you create your own account, which is Claim My Account, what that allows you to do is you can check your records and your history, and you can keep track of that yourself, so you can what courses you've taken. And this is between you and them, so I won't have your passwords and all that kind of stuff, but it allows you to, on your own, keep track of that. And then the bonus of doing that is you don't have to fill out the contact information the next time you register. You autofill, so there's a bonus to that. So this is both where you sign up for that account, and it's also then where you would log in to check your records or to create your records. So that option is to make life easier for you. So what I want to be real clear about is I'm here for you. So if you have questions or anything, or if you just need some help getting through this process, both in applying and in registering, because I'm also the registrar. So two hats, I'm two hats today. So anyways, contact me. You can either contact me on the website where it says contact, or my email is cbennington@foxinstitute-cs.org. So I can't wait for you to join us in this really exciting adventure we're on, because I know how life-changing my experience was at the University of Creation Spirituality, and I love this pedagogy, both as an educator and having experienced it as a student. It's so life-affirming, and tonight's webinar is a wonderful example of the depth and the excitement, the authenticity, and the heart that you get to experience. So come on, we can't wait to have you. I want to hear from you, so join us at Fox Institute of Creation Spirituality this fall, waiting just for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol. Well, we're shockingly doing pretty well on our time frame. So, yoo-hoo! We could have learned something from our last webinar. So what we have found is for us a little bit of time right now for some questions and answers related to the panel discussion, or the degrees that Marvin presented, or registration. And again, at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A question, and and here's a question. What kind of training is there for counseling people? That's a big reason I wanted for a formal degree. I'm a business person. I'm afraid I might inadvertently hurt someone without training. So it might be that you're thinking, because we don't have a specific counseling program, what the two things that might be related to compassionate care of people would be the leadership program, where we do have some classes on the care of community and working with people in a church or nonprofit setting. So there are some classes in that leadership segment. And then also for having the skill of deep listening and helping others discern the Spirit's movement in their lives, that would be the spiritual direction program. And so both of those have some specific training in working with individuals in a compassionate and skilled way. So hopefully, Myrna, that addressed your question with that. Is anybody wanting to add anything to that? If Anne's still on, she might want to say something. Well, actually, instead of going down that path, maybe just to tell you that, oh, okay, good. Thanks, Mara said thank you. So we must have addressed that. But next month's webinar is in collaboration with the Shalem Institute, and it's in partnership with the Shalem Institute that we are offering a master's in spiritual direction. So I really encourage people to attend that. And Kip, the spiritual direction, I think our next webinar, it's the
July 22nd.
July 22nd, and it's a Saturday, and I think it's
3:30 Eastern time.
What time is it?
3:30 Eastern Standard Time.
3:30 Eastern Standard Time, 1:30 Mountain Standard Time. So we'll be talking about the spiritual direction in depth on next month. What other questions are there? Because there's some more. Okay. Mona says if we come back to the spiritual direction, just to give, maybe at the end, we can give a taste of that prior. Look, Rabbi Gelfarb does what I do in board meetings, drive the car while she's in a webinar. You're muted there. We've seen that before. Older thing, Ruthie. Our board has seen, our committee meeting has seen a little bit of
you're so versatile, Susan.
Yeah. Well, you seem older in a variety of different things. How about any? I had a question. You guys ready for this question? I was reading in Matthew Fox's Wrestling with the Prophets, and he addresses some of this. But when people ask, like, what's the shadow side of creation spirituality, or what do people not understand? One of the things that they say is, well, it's sort of new agey, and Matt says, when somebody asks, like, what do people not understand or get confused about creation spirituality, he says, yes, that's one of it. They say it's new agey, and that's just because they're lazy journalists. And so, hopefully we're not lazy journalists or theologians or administrators. And so I just would put that question out there is, what if someone could answer, how do you differentiate creation spirituality from something that would be identified as New Age? Because I think it does relate to the Deep Ecumenism aspect or understanding.
Well, I just want to comment on that, Susan, because I think that there's a good analogy in music. And what I would say to that would be, when you look at a piece of music, you don't want to change the notes. And you don't want to differentiate the notes except to understand what the notes are to be played. But you're looking for the harmony that creates that brilliant melody. So you're always looking beyond. into something greater. And that is not New Age. That's as ancient wisdom as wisdom can be.
Yes.
I think that's really important what you just said. I would say it's more old agey, a lot more than it's new agey, because we're reclaiming the ancient traditions and the depth of them instead of focusing on the way the differences and the animosities between the religions has caused so many problems. It's the permeability. And I like the analogy of the notes, because the notes and the rest,
and the rest, yes.
and the rest, the pauses, they all shape each other in a beautiful way, so that all that's there is necessary for, as you say, Anna, the harmonic. Yeah, this is such an important time in which we live, that now there is a readiness for reclaiming the depths and needing to. There's an urgency.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
there's a readiness and an urgency, and I think the spirit is really ready for explosions of illumination, so that peace, I remember Hans Kung in that old classic about Christianity and the world religions said that there will be no peace unless there is peace among the world religions. And that's what this creation spirituality movement is about. And not just the people, but the whole earth. The earth is at risk.
I think that the deep ecumenism as an approach to interfaith through creation spirituality is a great example of how the creation spirituality tradition is different from some New Age stuff, and that I think we're really trying to look at not just kind of like the surface of things, not just the facile, easy answers, the simple answers, but actually really look deeper at these really important questions, and I think I like to use, I think the music metaphor is great. I also think it's another useful way to think about it is kind of an ecological metaphor. And I think for example, in an ecosystem, there's a unity of the whole system. There's a unity of the whole earth. It's a single process. The universe itself is a single process. So in some sense, it's a seamless process, as Brian Swim likes to say. So it's all sort of connected, and it's all the same process, but it's also benefits from the diversity. And I think that's something that we want to embrace too. There are real profound differences that we have, and that's okay. And it's okay to be at home with that paradox of unity and also difference at the same time. And I think it's sometimes those require a little more work, but I think they lead to rich rewards as well.
Susan, I'd be interested in where people are coming from in their faith tradition.
Oh, that was just perfect. So we've created a poll for those folks that are still online, and I'm going to launch this poll, and it just asks you, what faith tradition do you identify most strongly? With which do you identify most strongly? And so, yeah, you can just fill that out. I don't think the panelists can do it. Is that right?
No,
No, it says it can't.
We're not allowed.
No.
Okay.
And we also wanted to point out, we know there are more choices, but we didn't want to spend the whole evening having to read all the choices. So,
Good.
Well, actually, I was limited to how many spots I could fill out to it. Great. So I'm going to give it 10 more seconds, and we can, have people. We have a couple more people that haven't voted.
Voted.
Somebody's found a way to vote. Well, it's like, Kip, you were on 2 screens earlier today. That's like makes it easier to do. Okay, well, let me finish that. And let's see. We have 53% of people identify themselves as Christian, 12% as Jewish, 6% as Islam or Sufi, 12% as Buddhist, 6% as Indigenous, 18% as earth-based, 24% as multi or interfaith, and 18% as creation spirituality.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome. Let's see. Any other comments or questions? I have 2 more poll things that I can do that's more about the programs of interest, but that would move from any last comments from our panelists. Oh, it looks like Ruthie's talking, but she's muted. Let's see. I'll unmute you, Ruthie. There you go.
No, in the same, I believe that the diversity of metaphor is also helpful, and I was thinking of Reb Zalman's metaphor as though we are all one body, but each tradition is like its own organ in the body, and that they each have to be vibrant and healthy in order for the whole body to function.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I just would like to close in a statement that I think would emphasize deep ecumenism, which is, it's an outcome of devotion and investigation with a sincere heart that births the ideal of peace that we are all longing for in this planet. And I think that is what deep ecumenism is essentially trying to create in the hearts and minds of students that come to this subject.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I mean, everything that we've been talking about in starting the FICS Institute has often come back to during these times of polarization. It's like the opposite of the one score of music, if you will, or the one body. It's been the opposite as we've been pulled apart and had difficulty speaking across differences. And so this time is the perfect time for folks to deepen into the study of interfaith and deep ecumenism and into that place of peace.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else at last moment? And I have some, okay.
oh, I just wanted to add that I think one good stance for a person who is interested but not yet sure why they would want to engage in deep ecumenism is to get them to the point of understanding that in this expanding globe and complexity, that it is impossible for any tradition, any spiritual tradition, to promote the notion that they can get all the vitamins from one place.
Right.
And that's why you want to look at the other traditions, is to see what juice you can get, as long as it doesn't. Reb Zalman, who loved computer metaphors, said, you can take anything you want, as long as it doesn't mess with your system files. Okay?
They're great analogies.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so for the folks that we still have with us, which is a good number, I'm sort of curious about what program of the FICS Institute interests you the most. And so this poll has 2 questions. The first one is, what program interests you the most? And then it's multiple choice, like the certificate, master's, doctorate, non-degree, or alumni, doctorate, non-degree, or alumni auditing. And so I encourage you to vote. Can everybody see it? Yeah. And then the second question is, what concentrations interest you the most? So first it's the programs, and the second one is the concentrations. And so we have the list of our concentrations, which are sacred activism, spiritual direction, gender perspectives, ecological justice, intergenerational wisdom, community leadership, and then we have down there doctoral studies in my research topic. 2 questions to answer.
I didn't know it was a test.
Yep. Multiple choice, and you get an A no matter what.
That's and inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, so just remind them they can scroll down on number 2 for those other categories. So
Yeah. And when they have the poll in front of them, you just scroll up and down. Yeah. Any more people voting? Okay, I'm going to start reading what we have here. We have 7% interested in the certificate. If you haven't voted, keep, because it'll change it as we're going. Masters, 20%. Doctorate, 40%. Non-degree, 13%. Alumni auditing, 4%. And then what concentration interests you the most? Sacred activism is 33%. Spiritual direction is 60%. Gender perspectives, no one on this one has the gender perspectives. I think we're going to have to talk more about what that concentration is actually. And then ecological justice is 33%. Intergenerational wisdom, which in previous webinars has been one of the highest for this group, is 7%. Community leadership, 40%. So I would say community leadership is right after spiritual direction, and these don't all add up to.
No.
Maybe people vote more than once. It's like, I'm going down there, 33 and 60 and 40,
Yeah.
33. Yeah. This is sort of saying the percentage of people who, yeah. So anyway.
What about the doctoral studies?
And the doctoral studies is 13% of the research. And people, of course, know that you can do your doctoral study and focus in those concentrations, take your elections in those concentrations. So, that works good. And then I have one more poll.
Local traffic. Local traffic.
And then we have one more question for the, and this is for a poll here, and it again has 2 questions. And the first question is, when will you be ready to take a FOX Institute intensive? Okay, in October for our grand opening courses, we have a total of 5 courses available in October. Yay, people are signing up for that. It's going to be such a great time to start your degree or your studies. Early 18, late 18, 19, or not applicable. And that might be somebody who, I don't know, then not applicable is somebody that wasn't planning on taking classes and is learning from these webinars. But hopefully everybody through the auditing possibility will be willing and able and interesting to take a class. And the last one is, do you plan to attend the grand opening gala?
I hope we're still offering classes in the year 2107.
Did I do a typo? Yeah, look at that. No one even said anything on that. It was, look, somebody did it.
well,
Okay, I'll sign up for that.
we'll be around then. Yeah,
I
we
don't
won't,
know.
but the program will.
Yeah.
I love the optimism in that, Susan. That's great. We're gonna work on
Well, you know,
planets with
Marvin and I have a passion for the Beguines, and they lasted hundreds and hundreds of years. So I don't see why creation spirituality education won't do the same.
Amen. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody voted on this, and we've got 31% saying they're starting in October during the grand opening classes. 13% starting in November. 19, again, these numbers sort of funny. It's the 19% of the people here. Early 18, 1 late 18, 2019, one person, that's when they were able to start. And then as far as coming to our gala, which is really important to us, we have 25% saying yes, 38% saying no, and 38% saying I hope so. I thought I had to put that in there because sometimes you want to come and you aren't quite sure yet if you can make it. So we'll give you a couple more months to hopefully make that work out. All right, well, we're winding up. I see one. Oh, yeah, I love Adrian. Because Adrian doesn't like that only the one vote opportunity. So you can vote for spiritual activism. The second vote for creation spirituality is a faith tradition. So I like that. Okay, so Ted, will you close us? And I just really want to say before you do that, thank you to everyone that's here. This is such a rich group and an interesting group, and you're volunteering your time to be here, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming you as professors to the school and to our incredible staff, Carol and Kip and Anne, our board member, who's also going to be a student, finishing your doctorate. We have some pretty amazing people that are finishing their doctorates that started many years ago at UCS and want to finish it at Fox Institute. So I just want to say thank you to each of you for the beauty that you bring to this group and to Fox Institute.
Thank you too, Susan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
All your work.
Thank
and
you.
Marvin and Ted and everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you to the audience who joined us.
Right.
I look forward to meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to the panel and to everyone who joined. I mean, I think really to the creation of a vibrant learning community is dependent upon teachers learning from students and students learning from each other and teachers learning from each other, and that creation of that sacred space in between, rather than just sort of, I'm looking forward to people getting in the same space and being in the same room together, as much as this technology is cool. I also wanted to point out that after going through those percentages and trying to add those up, I just want to point out there's no math that I'm aware of in any no math requirement in any. So it all added up to something. Okay. So I was asked to find a Deep Ecumenism quote to close us, and so I'm going to read something I really enjoy from the great medieval Sufi philosopher, poet, and mystic Ibn Arabi. He writes, "My heart can take any appearance. The heart varies in accordance with the variations of the innermost consciousness. It may appear in the form as a gazelle meadow, a monkish cloister, an idol temple, a pilgrim Kaaba, the tablets of the Torah for certain sciences, the bequest of the leaves of the Quran. My duty is the debt of love."
So beautiful.
Beautiful. Can you read it just one more time for a little slower, just to hear it one more time? It's so powerful.
My heart can take any appearance. The heart varies in accordance with variations of the innermost consciousness. It may appear in form as a gazelle meadow, a monkish cloister, an idol temple, a pilgrim Kaaba, the tablets of the Torah for certain sciences, the bequest of the leaves of the Quran. My duty is the debt of love.
Duty is a debt of love.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. What a great
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Blessings to everybody, and we look forward to people joining us next month for our webinar.
Yeah.
July 22nd.
July 22nd. See you there. Bye all. Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Blessings to everyone.